God is real, yes?
Yeah.
How do you know?
Because we're real.
So the journey continues.
Because we're real.
Week 3, God is real. And so how is it do I know? How is it do I know that God is real? It's because I feel this indwelling presence. And God is real to all who feel this indwelling presence. And you know that I have a love of words. And although we use the word to feel, we feel all the time. But what does that really mean? So I consulted metaphysical Bible dictionaries. And it was the Merriam Subversion Dictionary. And I choose very specific ones because they tend to be more in alignment with what it is that we know to be truth. And so the definitions that came up were to be conscious of. Did you know that that's what to feel means? To be conscious of. To have a thorough conviction of. To have a sensation of something other than by sight. So that's what it means to feel the indwelling presence of God. And only when you have that experience, when you're consciously aware of it, when you see it everywhere, when you see it as beauty in the faces of each other, that's when you truly know that God is real. So Neil Donald Walsh says this. I was reading his book, Friendship with God. And God is speaking to Neil. As you know, that's his thing. God speaks to him, and then he shares that with the rest of the world. And he says that your soul knows everything, past, present, and future. And it knows who you are, and it knows me intimately, because it is the part of me that is closest to you. So to know me, you must truly know your own soul. And so that's what we espouse here at the Spiritual Empowerment Center, to come to be educated so that you get to know your soul. And in knowing your soul, there is a level of intimacy, yes? Yeah. And your soul is not your mind. Your soul is not your thoughts. Your soul are not the circumstances and conditions that you find yourself in. See, your soul only knows the absolute reality. The absolute reality is what we know to be God. That's all your soul knows. It's unadulterated. It's never been violated. Never been conditioned, bamboozled. None of that. It's pure, unadulterated love. And that love is God's love for us. It's creation. And our reciprocal love of God to God is divine love. And that is all that our soul knows. And so there are times when we need to be reminded, yes? Yes. To rethink things. Meaning, what is the truth here? This may be a fact, but it is not the absolute truth of anything. And when you can go within to that place of peace and harmony and absolute joy, and seek answers and have conversations, ask your questions. And if you listen for the answer, and it's not just with eyes that hear, eyes that see, and ears that hear. It is everywhere the answers show up for us. And when you recognize that, then you know you have evidence that God is real. So I'm going to stick to my script now. in intimacy with God. Think about those loving relationships that you've had where you've gotten to a point of intimacy. What was involved? There was a courtship. Mm-hmm. There were conversations. There were dates and times and places. And an allocation of time. Well, that is the only way you're going to develop this intimacy with God, is to court God. And when you're filling out those calendars and you're plugging in your appointments on your PDAs, make time for God. Make time for God too. In the Bible, David, you know the slayer of giants? David really knew what it meant to have an intimate relationship with God. And when God empowered him to slay Goliath, then he knew emphatically that God was real. But you know what? This just didn't happen without any effort. The Psalms are filled with requests that David makes to God. And he says, "Oh God, you are my God. I shall seek you earnestly. My soul thirsts for you. My soul clings to you." And he asks, "Make me know your ways, O Lord. Teach me your paths. Make me know your nature." So what is he doing? He's praying to God. He's asking God, let me know you. I want to know you. And we know that knowing is deeper than believing in you, yes? I want to know you. And so he goes on to say, I want to meditate upon you. And the scripture is Psalm 145:5, and he says specifically, on the glorious splendor of your majesty and on your wonderful works, I will meditate. And so I implore you to do the same. On the wonderful works of God in your life, meditate. Yes, there's stuff that's happening. There's stuff that is not of your choosing, of your liking. But why empower it? Why let it affect you? When you can meditate on the wondrous works, on the myriad blessings that have been bestowed upon you. And I was just saying to somebody, I don't know who it was, but when you stay in that place of gratitude, because you know your mind can only entertain one thing at a time. Did you know that? One emotion at a time. Did you know that? It can only have an experience of one situation at a time. So if it's of gratitude, you're blessed. You are energizing the law of good and more good. And by the same token, when you're dwelling on the facts, because I'll tell you, I looked at my checking account the other day. I didn't like what I saw. But I can't go there. I'm going to dwell on the truth. And the truth is, I'm whole, I'm healthy, I'm complete, I'm loved, I have dear friends, I have my spiritual family. Oh my God. OMG! What else could I want? But sometimes we get caught up. We get so caught up in the facts. And then guess what? The effects become the cause, and then the cause becomes the effect, and you find yourself in this spiral of not enoughness. Of lack and limitation. So the question is, how about you? Do you often think about God, about her majesty, her attributes, her qualities, her wonderful works? Do you think about developing an intimacy with God? So this is how you do it. In the words of Neil Donald Walsh, have conversations with God. Share your thoughts. Share your feelings. Ask your questions, and then listen. And be aware, be awake, and be alert to the way in which God answers. And so, the thing is we always have our ideas of how it should come. Right. And how the prayer should be answered. Yeah. And yesterday I was working with a group of writers, and knowing that I'm a minister, would you please bring some kind of ritual or ceremony to the... Of course I will. That's who I am. I can do that. So we did a burning bowl. And then we did our letters to God, the same ceremony that I performed here. I performed with this group of women. And so before they started to write their letters, this one woman who was the host, she says, I have a question. And I said, well, what is that question? And she said, well, how specific should I be in this letter? and so I just sat there and I said, that's an interesting question. And I think that the answer is a very individual one, a very individual response. And she says, well, why is that? I said, because it depends on your intimacy, your knowledge of, your love of, your trust of your Creator.